In the real estate journey, you must have a niche for yourself. You must know what you are called to do. You cannot do everything. There are different components of real estate. As I've always told many of my followers and many of my students, you may decide you want to go full-scale construction. You may decide you want to go on site and service scheme. You may decide you want to go to be a freelance marketer to learn about sales. You may decide you want to be doing supplies of building materials. You may decide that you want to broker deals as an agent between one party to another. There are different components. When you talk about supply of building materials, we also have other branches under it. You may decide that you want to be supplying only tiles. You may decide you want to supply only granite. You may decide to supply only sand. You may decide you want to be supplying POP materials. You may decide you want to be supplying roofing sheets. You may decide you want to, you have much more than 30 to 50 components in completing a building. Which one are you? You cannot be everything. The Bible says, for this one cause, or that was the Son of God called, that he may destroy the works of the devil. For this one cause, this one purpose was Jesus called to destroy the works of the devil. Meaning that even Jesus came to the world for one purpose. But when he got here, he still did other things. So you must know what you are called to do. That is what will make the journey of life easy and smooth for you. Yes, there will be challenges, but I can tell you, you always overcome. So, without taking much more of your time, tonight, I want to bring a man who does not understand too many languages other than the language of construction. And that is a man that has been tested. He has been proven. He has not failed God. He has not failed us. Yes, we fight a lot of times, but we have successfully gotten quite a good number of good results working with him. Please join me tonight to welcome on the Bishop of Real Estate Academy, the 7th edition of this academy. In this cohort 1, welcome Engineer Engr Toluwa Ilugbuhi. Please help me welcome him, please. Everyone welcome him as I hand over to him.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Doctor, for this privilege to be part of this academy. And I'm not taking it for granted. And I say thank you. I'll be so brief because the topic I've been given, 1 hour will not be enough. 2 hours will not be enough. 1 week will not be enough. 1 year may not even be enough. Because it's a process I've gone through for the past 21 years. And then I have to crash it to 45 1 hour. I pray God will help me in Jesus' name. Before Doctor came on board, when the co-host, that was David, was asking questions, and I got people saying that, what do we have to do first before we do construction? I could see people listing all what they think, and I thought, is it that someone has how will I say now, aspiring to my slide? But everything everyone has said, you are right. But I'll just run us through briefly on what it takes to have a successful construction. I'll start with my first slide. I said real estate, and that's the introduction. Real estate refers to land and anything permanently attached to it, whether natural or man-made. It is a broad term that covers both physical property and the business activities related to owning, buying, selling, or renting that properties. I said the building process is one of the most critical journey in real estate development. One, for investment, developers, and professionals. understanding this process is essential to ensuring that projects are delivered on time, within budget, and with lasting value. If you have a project and then you don't deliver it on time, definitely, because all of us want to have a project, and then the goal end is to what? Is to make profit. No matter how good and fantastic your project is, if you don't deliver on time and within the budget, definitely you have an issue. And then if you don't have a lasting value, definitely as a marketer, you definitely not have a referral. Because if you have a project and then it's being delivered shabbily, definitely the person you must have sold the property to will definitely not give a referral. So, and I say we'll look at a comprehensive guide that walks through the stage of the bidding process, supported by 8 major steps while adding real-world insight. Now, if you can see my slide, everybody, if you check the left-hand side, I just make mention of some certain preliminaries. This is just an introduction. By the time we'll go deep into it, all of us will understand. Now, before we set on to move to site to build, there are so many things that go under the background. You know, there is a saying that says, if you fail to prepare, you are preparing to fail. And I believe none of us want to fail in life. So we need to plan properly. And then that's where I said the planning stage. The planning stage, the project scope. You define this project scope. What exactly do you want to build? You know, when they say project, a project is that any activities that have a beginning and then have an end. A project is not a closed end. It must have a beginning and then it must have an end. Not an open end, I mean. And then when I start talking about zoning, land use, regulations, environmental impact assessment, your project, what impact will it have to the community? For example, you will not want to build a factory that emits polluted items into the air in a residential area. Definitely, government will not give an approval. And they will now come down to the design stage, whereby the thoughts is being put into paper. For example, a developer, as rightly may say, will now cast his thoughts to the project team. Okay, I want X, Y, Z. And then by so doing, every stakeholders will now start gathering. What does that mean? The architects will be invited. The engineers too will be invited. The civil, the structural, the electrical, the mechanical, and every other thing will be invited. And then I talk about the pre-construction stage, permits and approvals. And you could see, I will narrow all my discussion to Lagos. And you know, if you don't get your approvals, definitely government will come after you and will likely demolish your property. And if you're a marketer, your prospects will be more at ease if he knows that, okay, this property I'm buying, I have government approval. So you will know that, okay, I'm not trying to be penny wise or pound foolish. And then we talked about so many other things: selection of contractors, site preparation, safety planning, what have you and what have you. And then we'll go to the construction stage. That's the actual work. Moving to site, executing excavation, setting out excavation, building. And then the last stage is the post-construction stage, whereby you are done with it and then you hand it over to individual occupants and then maintenance. Now, there is this bad habit in this part of the world that we can build something fantastic, something good, but we don't maintain it. And whatsoever you don't maintain over time will definitely give way. If you are conversant with somewhere around 1004 estates, people that are conversant on the island, you could see that the building is a fine project over a long time, but the building is not properly maintained. So I'll go to my next slide. Sorry, I'm having a glitch. Okay, fine. So I said, we have all manners of stakeholders in the construction field. If you check at my extreme end, you have the government agency. I'm going to explain each role of all the stakeholders. We have the developer, that's the initiator of the plan. We have the architect, the architect, I call them the master thinker. They are the one that will put the thoughts of the developer into reality. And then putting it to thought, they are the first point of call. They get the brief from the developer. The developer explains to them what they want and what, and then they can tell the developer, okay, fine, you can do this, you can do that. And then we have the engineering team that comprises of the civil engineer, the structural engineer, the service engineer, and the likes like it. And then we have the builders. The builders are people that try to interpret in reality on ground what the architect is saying. Why the engineers are the supporting, I call them supporting strikers, to see that the builder is doing what he's supposed to do, and then interpreting the thought of the architect, since the architect has the fully thought of the developer. And then the project manager. Now, the project manager is there to coordinate every of the stakeholders, the architect, the engineers, the builders, and then the QS, the quantity surveyor. Now, there's a part of the Bible that said, who will first want to build a tower that will not sit down and consider the cost first? So no matter how good the thought may be, if you don't have a cost attached to it, how do you want to know how much it will cost you to execute the project? And then how do you want to know what your selling price is going to be? And then we have the land surveyor, the contractors, the suppliers, and then the artisans. The artisans are the iron bender, Baba Risika, the iron bender, Baba Ibrahim, the carpenter, the masonry that we call the bricklayer, and what have you. That's where we have here. You can see it. I just brief it as based on what I have on my slide. The next one is design set, like I rightly said. Now, I said the design set. I said the design and the planning team include the following main stakeholders: the developers. He initiates the project, provides funds, and outline project goals and requirements. 2, architect. I call them the master thinker, leads the design process, create architectural concept and drawing. And then the 3 is the engineer. The engineer provides the technical expertise, both in the structural integrity, that's where the structural engineer comes into play. The M&E, that's the electrical aspect, the mechanical aspect, and then the site infrastructure. That's where the civil engineer comes into. And then we have the project manager. He coordinates planning activities, managing timelines, budget, and communication among all the stakeholders. And then we have the QS prepare the cost estimate, conduct feasibility study, and advise on financial viability. And then there's a question I want all of us to ask, as in to think about. Sorry. Critical thinking. At my right-hand side, if we all can see my slide on my screen, there's a proposed university main campus that's coming, that they've given to someone. He wants to start construction. Then, as a businessman or as a developer, what should come to your mind? I said, congratulations, you are on your way to become a rector. See this: if you are a rector or a developer in this location, what kind of structure will you venture into? Student hostel, retail plaza, facility office, recreation center, or something else, and why? So that's a question I've left behind for us. Maybe at the end of my presentation, we may likely have, individuals may have different answers to what they would like to put there. Now, I said financing and budgeting. This is very, very key. No matter how good your thoughts are, no matter how good your concepts are, you need to know what exactly is the cost of the execution of the project. And that's where the quantity surveyor comes into it. And then I've told you about, okay, who and what the work, who and what does the quantity surveyor do? The quantity surveyor is started with cost management, financial planning, and value for money. The quantity surveyor prepares the budget in line with all the necessary parameters, the drawings available. Now you talk about the architectural drawing, the structural drawing, the infrastructure drawing, the electrical drawing, the mechanical drawing. All these details, all these working drawings will be presented to the quantity surveyor, and then he will sit down and then start the costing. And then at my right hand side, I say source of funding for developers, personal equity or saving, bank loans or mortgage, joint ventures and partnership or off-plan sales. I won't dwell much on this aspect, but you need to check. You start feeling in your construction when, for example, you have a project that will span you for 2 years, and then you are getting a loan from the bank, a short-time loan. You definitely know that there's no how you work fast that you break even. That is a topic for another day. And then what do you need to consider before fixing your budget? You need to consider, okay, this is my project. How do I want to source my fund? How am I going to go about it? Is it a joint venture or joint ventures and partnership, or do I want to do off-plan sales? All this is okay. Let me see how I can gather resources. I can decide to do a joint ventures whereby someone has a land and he doesn't have capacity to develop it, and that that's where developer comes in. They value the land, and then developer funds the construction, and then at the end of the day, there's what we call profit sharing based on percentage of ownership. And then government approval and legal compliances. Now, it will not be good after all this going through here, and then you are done with your project, and then you execute it, and then subscribers have moved it, and then overnight, government is coming with the bulldozer. Start bringing out your structures based on the fact that they say, okay, there's no government approval, or the building or the structure was on the wrong, maybe on canal, or where the place had been zoned. Maybe, okay, it had been zoned for commercial, and then someone that has money decided to turn it to residential. So all these bodies and government agencies, I'll be explaining in my next slide so that we can understand what it entails. In my right hand side, I say building planning approval, LASPA and LASBAC. If you're into construction, this body, you need to be friends with them, and you need to comply with what they must have asked you to do, so that you don't have issues during construction, after handing over, and try the lifespan of the building. Then I'll talk a bit about government approval, legal compliances for Lagos State, because most developers, we just move to a site, we just build, and then we don't take this. And I must thank Dealclinchers some for that. All their sites, they have to do due diligence, get government approvals, get permit, get assessment, get every necessary permit that is needed before they move to site. And then I said approval processes from government. I've divided it into 3 stages based on my own experience. I call it pre-construction stage. That's what you need to do before even moving to site. And then as you're on site, what is required of you to do before, while you're on site, while construction is still ongoing. And then the last one is, I said completion stage. Despite you are done with your project, you still have to do some compliances to sign off on your project. I'll start with the pre-construction stage. I say Lagos State, that's under Lagos State Fiscal Planning Permit Authority. That's what we call compliance of documents, which includes your registered survey. Now, the first thing you need to do is you need to get a registered survey. And what do I mean by registered survey? A registered survey is a survey that have an evidence of lodgement with the states with the states of your general office. You see some survey, they say it's registered, and by the time you trace it to the office of your general's office, it's nowhere to be found. So the first thing we need to do is we need to ensure that the survey is a registered survey. And then the next thing is, all this are still on that planning stage. You go into the, you walk into the Ministry of Fiscal Planning and Urban Development, that's MPP and UP office, to get a planning information. Now, this planning information will tell you this particular area where I need to erect my structure. What are the do's, what are the don'ts as per the zoning of the land? Is it for commercial? Is it for residential? Is it for mixed purpose? If it's zoned for commercial and then you decide to put residential there because you know someone in the government, it's dangerous, because they say peradventure the government that is in power goes and then the new government comes in and then you've not followed the master plan of that zone, definitely your structure will be pulled down. And then you said high restrictions. There's some certain areas whereby there are some certain restrictions of height you can go, how many floors you can go. Definitely, you know that if your property is close to where we have the airport, definitely you can't do a high-rise building. And then after that, we talk about after all those design information you get, and then you now pass it across to the architect. And then with those information, the architect will now come up with a proposal, putting into consideration the thought of the developer. Now, I'll call the developer here the visioneer. So he brings it into thought. I say, present, ready. So after that, after getting your registered survey and then your planning information, the architect have it and then prepare his proposed architectural design. And then he takes that with the planning information and then the registered survey to the office of the Lagos State Fiscal Planning Permit Authority for what we call pre-screening of architectural design. Now, all these things can take time, but when you plan yourself and then you dot your I's, you cross your T's, by the time you move to site, life is sweeter, and then you are what I call autopilot. You just be moving, and then you get your pre-screened architectural design, and then the government in-house architect pre-screen your designs to see that, okay, fine, is your design conforming to the planning information? And there's something about your setbacks, cross ventilations, water flow. Then after that, the same team will now visit the site. We call it visit to site to do what? To propose site. Now, there's something that is called calculation of assessment and IDC. Now, this is how it works. Based on if you've passed the pre-screening and then site has been visited, the next thing is to calculate your assessment. That's what you are due to pay to the government. And then they calculate based on architectural drawing. And then there's something they call IDC. They call it infrastructural development charges. Now, there are some areas whereby if it's residential, they'll say if it's more than 4 units, the 5th unit upward, there's something they call IDC. You pay extra money. As out of now, I stand to be corrected, I think it's like ₦1 million. So for example, if that particular zone is zoned for 4 units, and then you decided to have 8 units, there will now be 8 minus 4. That is 4 times 1 million. So that is 4 million IDC added to the assessment that will be what? That will be calculated. And then after that, you do your payments. And then after you do your payment, there's what they call post-assessment payment, and then post-assessment payment and submission of document. By the time you do your assessment, you take your receipt, and then you go along with your title document. And then the title document will determine what type of approval you will get. Either provisional approval or a full-fledged approval. Now, if you have a title document whereby is a CFO, deed of assignment, CFO or governor consent, definitely you may likely have a full approval. But anything short of that is going to be like a professional approval. That's to move to site, and then you have 9 months within when it's issued for you to get a document ready, and then you finish your project. And then you go along with your task clearance, your drawing, structural, and then your service drawing, electrical, mechanical, and what have you. And then you have to have your subsoil investigation report. There are some certain flaws, I think, any design you are doing, and then you have 3 floors. I will explain. 3 floors, it says that 2 suspended floor plus the ground floor make it 3. So anything above that, you would definitely need a subsoil investigation report, and the passport of the passport photograph of the applicant, and then there's something they call LUPAC, PPTR, and then EIA. All these documents will be prepared by a town planner. So EIA comes in when you're talking about real estate for property above 5,000 square meters, and then you submit evidence of assessment. Now, I'm taking my time to brief off this so that we don't fall foul. Start your project, and then as a realtor, you've sold to an off plan, and then you decide to give progress of work report, and then maybe the subscriber got it off plan, and then you've promised you'll be giving weekly report. And then you get the first report, the same report, second report, third report. And then the subscriber is asking, okay, what's happening? You see, government come to seal our site. Nobody will want to hear it. They'll say, so why did you do your due diligence? And there's no approval and every other thing. So I'm taking my time to run us through this. And then by the time we're done, and then we report, and then I call something that post submission of documents. After I submitted the other document I mentioned before now, and then there will now be a file will be open for you, and then you will get your file number, and then you get your approval letter, provisional or final. And then I have the template somewhere. I said see template 1. Let me take us there. So this template 1, this is a typical example of this how a professional approval looks like. And then there's something called submission of written insurance policy when you have building high rise, because due to collapse building here and there, the local state government have put this into place to check quacks, and then to cut against the issue of collapse. And then part of what you submit is your application to commence work. And then there's something they call, after submitting this, you now go to Lagos State Building Control Agency, because they want to check, to come around to check your work. And then something they call, you will write application to them that you want to move to site. And then they will now give you what they call authorization letter. I said see template 3 and 4. Now this template 3 and 4, look at something like that, like commencement, that's authorization to commence construction, sequence to what. So you have this, and then there's something they call green sticker. So this template 5. So any site you see, and then you have this sticker on the gate, just know that yes, government is under government inspection, and then you don't need to worry or be scared of. That's to tell you that, okay, this person have done due diligence, and then it's good to go. Government is aware what is building, and government is what is monitoring and supervising his or her project. Now, let me take us to milestone construction phases. So we are getting closer home gradually. Now, I said there are different stages in construction. I said foundation, structures, and every other thing. Now, I'm going to explain more of this in a practical example that I've cited in the previous, in my slide. Now, we have different stages in construction. We have the foundation stage, that's the substructure. Or first thing first, there's something we call what? Site mobilization. What done by site mobilization? That's the process of moving all necessary resources, materials, equipment, and labor to the construction site to work and can begin. Now I said the foundation structure, the foundation and the structure. Now, after the architect is done with his design, he passes it across to the structural engineer. The structural engineer did the structural aspect of it. That I call it, the architect prepared the flesh, the structural engineer prepared the bone. It's just like human body. As a human being, if your bone is defected, no matter how good your skin is, you will definitely have issue. So the architect prepared the flesh, let me put it that way, and then the structural engineer prepared the bone. I said foundation and structure. I said the lower division of the building in direct contact with the soil, based on which a structure rests also. So what am I trying to say? The foundation is what holds the overall thing of what you want to do. And then there's this saying that said, if the foundation is faulty, what can the righteous do? No matter what you build in this industry, if your foundation is faulty, if you've gotten it wrong, definitely there's nothing you build, it will definitely crumble. And that's what I must thank Dealclinchers home for. They don't joke with the foundation. I will show you a slide of one of our projects at Ikeja GRA. You'll see how massive the foundation is. And then I'll explain to you in my subsequent slide the type of foundations we have based on building. And then we'll talk about the superstructure. That's immediately you are done with the foundation, you start building. And then start seeing the space for it. Like you can see here now, this just shows us a typical frame structure. And then the finish is something like this. I said key engineering details to pay attention to in construction. 1, soil test and improvement. The soil test helps determine the strength, type, and stability of the ground before construction. It guides the engineer in what is selecting suitable foundation type and prevents structural failure. That's what we call soil test, or we call it soil investigation report. You mobilize to site, drill, take samples at borehole, do some tests to see how far your soil can resist the force you are putting on it. Because a soil is a stable ground, and then you are trying to disturb the soil. Disturb in the sense that you are trying to bring in what heavier body on the soil. So it's just good that you ensure that what you are building or you are bringing on the soil can carry it. And how does the soil carry it? That are determining the type of what the foundation you will adopt. When soil conditions are weak, improvement methods such as compactions and water fill will be done. And then to avoid, I'm sure some of us will just see some building, will just be deflecting, going one side or the other way. Now, ideally, there's no how you build on a good soil. There's something we call settlement. The building will definitely settle. But when the building is not settling uniformly, we call it differential settlement. You just see one side going and the other side coming there. Some is going front, some is going backward, some is tilting to the right, some is tilting to the left. And then that is to say that something is wrong with this type of foundation. And then I said foundation, type of foundation. I said foundation are structural elements that transfer building load safely to the soil. Now we have two major types of foundation. We have the shallow foundation and we have with deep foundation. What gives you what foundation to adopt is 1, what type of load are you planning to build to put on the soil, and what's the nature of the soil. For example, I said example include part, strip, raft, or combined footing. All this will be appreciated when you have a practical site visitation. You'll be able to understand this kind of foundation. And then I called something about deep foundation, piles, and then water fill. Now I said, now in construction, there are two structural systems we do. We call something frame structure and we call some on-frame structure. I'll try to explain to you. In building construction, the term frame structure and on-frame structure or load-bearing structure refer to different methods of supporting and distributing load, hence a breakdown of the difference. Now, I highlighted in red. I said frame structure is a frame. I said a frame structure consists of a what? A skeleton or a frame that supports the building. This frame is typically made of material like steel or concrete. Now, I will explain further. When we say frame structure, you are done with your foundation and then you fixed in your columns, your slab up to your roof. And then after that, you start fixing your partition where that is your block and every other thing. In a layman terms, it's just trying to say that none of your blocks is carrying any load. It's just a partition way. So the good thing about that is you can decide to do any remodeling of your choice. You can knock any wall down and your building will still stand as long as you do not touch the column, popularly called the pillars. I said, that's just what I was trying to explain in ABC. And then I said on frame structures. And then, okay, frame structure, that is common with if you have high-rise buildings, you can still have just one suspended floor and then it's still frame structure. You can have two, but anything above 3 floors and above, I recommend that people should do a frame structure. You are done with your columns, your beam, your slab up to the roof. And then you can now start what? Doing your block partitioning. And then the on-frame structures whereby part of your block is used to support your load, maybe support your slab or your decking. Now, that can be fast and easier and cheaper, but at the long run, 2 things you should consider is if the quality of your bricks or your block is not strong enough, you may likely have a collapse. If the nature of your soil is not a firm soil, when there are settlements, it can give way. Unlike frame structure, every element are banded together such that if they are going together, they are going together uniformly. And one of the major disadvantages of on-frame structure is you can't easily remodel. You cannot knock down any wall. If you need to knock down any wall, you need to do some structural support. And if you are not there right from the beginning of the construction, it may be difficult for you to remodel. Or if there is no as-built structural drawing, it can be very difficult for you to remodel. Now, I've gotten a 20-step in construction phase, so I'm streamlining my discussion to frame structure. Now, I said first thing is setting out. What do you mean by setting out? You've gotten your land, you've cleared your land, you do the setting out. Construction, setting out in what? Construction means marking the exact position of the building. Now, in setting out, 2 things you will get to make use of: your architectural drawing and then your structural drawing. The first thing is you get your survey plan, you try to reconfirm what you have in your survey. Definitely your survey plan is what the architect are used to design. So you pick your site layout. The site layout is where the survey is being interpreted by the architect, putting the exact overall position of the building, give the necessary setbacks. So the first thing you need to do is to confirm that all the walls, all the dimensions are stated based on the line on the site layout prepared by the architect is conforming with what you have actually on site. And if it's conforming, fine. That is a good step in the right direction. And then the next thing you now is, okay, fine. You now harmonize the grand floor plan of the architectural drawing with the foundation layer that the structural engineer has prepared. And then that's when you now see people start doing profile here and there, and then you start taking your levels, cutting out your space. Now, there are some layouts. If the building is not complex and they are perfect shape, you may likely not use any instrument. But when you have a complex layout, then that's when you call in a land surveyor, and then he can measure what they call total station or theodolite. Though theodolite is we call it old school, but a total station will give you precision and accuracy in setting out. Because the first thing you need to know that your setting out is key. If you miss it from the setting out, from there to the roof, you will definitely not get it right. If the master bedroom is 4 meters by 4 meters, and then you did not interpret it properly, and then any slight differential in measure, maybe you now decide to do 3.8, that's what you're going to carry, and it may affect every other subsequent unit above it. And then after that, you start talking about excavation. You start digging your foundation trench based on the nature of the foundation you are adopting. And then after that, we call something they call blinding. Blinding is just, okay, you've excavated, your level is not even. So you do blinding so as to perfect your levels inside the foundation thread, so that from there you've stopped any likely errors that may occur in differential in height. So your blinding will take care of that. And they'll start talking about the next step is start putting the formwork and reinforcement based on, for example, if you're adapting a pad footing or a raft footing. And they'll talk about what? Concreting. Now, assuming we are talking about rafts now. Now, we have different kind of rafts, and that will be of another class. Okay, assuming the one all of us normally know, you put your beam and then your slab. So let me use, for example, a beam and slab raft. So you do your beam and then you do your concreting, and then you will remove your formwork. And all these things, as you are doing it, there's an agency you will invite. Normally, Lagos State Building Control Agency, you will give them 7 days prior notice before you do your concreting. For example, you are done with your excavation for your foundation, and then you've put your reinforcement, you put your formwork. So you give them 7 days prior notice for them to come and check what you've done, and then to give you a pass on it. I'll show you a typical stuff, a typical letter you write to them, inviting them to come and check your work. I have it in one of my slides here. That's okay. For example, look at my template 6, invitation for state certification. So you write them, okay, fine, every stakeholder have checked, and then we are inviting you people to come and check. Now, there's a template that needs to be signed along with it as a sign off. That's template 7. All the stakeholders on the project will sign off on it, because all these documents is needed at the end of the project, because there's something they call Form C, telling you that is what that will tell you how fit. Government will certify that, okay, fine, every stakeholder have checked this building and then is fit for habitation. All these documents are what you combine together to apply for it. Like you can see one registered architect on the project will sign on it. The structural engineer, registered current structural engineer or civil engineer will sign on it. A builder will sign on it. That's template 7. And then, okay. Sorry. So they sign all those things, and then when they come around for state certification to confirm that, okay, fine, you are good to go. What is in your drawing, what we approve in your drawing is what you are interpreting on site. So they will sign off on it, and then they will allow you to go ahead with your concreting. And then there's this Lagos State testing lab will come around to take sample of your concrete, sample of your reinforcement to take to lab to go and confirm that the design thread that the structural engineer asks you to adopt on site was definitely adopted. Then after that, we start coming and remove our form after casting, and then and then we cure, and then we start backfilling. Then by the time you backfill, you need to do dam proving. Now, if you observe that some houses in Lagos, you just find out that at the bottom side of the wall, the walls are peeling off. Definitely, we call it rising dam. They've not done a proper dam proving. Now, if you don't do dam proving, is one of the major aspects of foundation that most people neglected. And if you don't do a right dam proving, you just find out that your room is damp, and then if you have newborn babies in that kind of apartment, you just find out that the baby keep on getting sick, you keep on visiting the hospital because the right thing was not done. And then we talk about the oversight, then you pour your concrete out, what everybody popularly called German floor. And then from there, you start building column, beam, slab, and then you put in your mechanical work and then your block work. Then the next thing is, by the time you have done all those things, we start talking about plastering. By the time you plaster, you start talking about the finishing stages, putting in your door, you screed, you do your tiling, you do your M&E. Your M&E, the first phase. Now, we have 3 phases in M&E. We have first, you have the piping work. By the time you do the piping work, both electrical, mechanical, plumbing, and AC. Now, before you start plastering, there's something we call pressure testing that most people don't normally do, but we will do here in Dealclinchers. Now, we do pressure testing in 2 aspects of our piping works, the plumbing work and then the AC work. Now, the plumbing work, we call it pressure testing, whereby you subject the supply line to a minimum of 48 hours to see if there will be likely leakage along the joint, and then you can take care of it before you plaster. And then we call something like hair pressure testing. That's your AC piping. If you've done your conduit piping for your split ACs, you hair pressure it to see that along the line your pipes are not leaking. I mean the word refrigerants are not leaking. And by the time you are done with that, then you can now start talking about mortar plastering. The first thing you need to do is you need to ensure that you put your gauge such that by the time you are done with your plastering, you have a smooth and a straight wall. And then the plastering may likely correct some slightly abnormalities during your block setting, because your block setting is a function will give you, if your block setting is very faulty, definitely your plastering will have an issue. I'm sure some of you must have seen some sites whereby they'll be doing plastering and they'll just be filling. Ideally, maybe the plastering ought not to be more than 25 mm. And then you see people having as far as 100 mm thick plastering. And all those things will tell on the overall cost of your construction. And then by the time you are done, you talk about the tiling of your floors for your apartment and then your toilets. And there's something you need to pay attention to on your toilet is waterproofing. You need to waterproof your toilet floors and your wall floors properly. Your grouting line has to be treated properly because those are likely places of where you can likely have water penetrating over time. And none of us, and it's a bad thing whereby if your floor tiles for particularly wet area is not properly done, over time you just see water seeping through the grout, and over time you just see the slab below it peeling off, piling off, and the slab start giving out. And then water start percolate through the concrete, and then the reinforcement inside the slab start getting rust, and then before you know, the beauty start giving way, and then because they will start marking it for likely demolition or likely maintenance. And then after that, the second phase is your M&E fittings, whereby for the electrical you start fitting in your sockets, your switches, and then your lighting as the case may be. And then there's something we call greenhouse, maybe smart home or no smart home. You want to do solar or no solar, all this will be incorporated in your design. And the next is the railing and balustrade installation, and then the furnitures, the kitchen cabinet, and then and then the painting. And then the last but not the least is your what? Your general cleaning. And then when you are done with all those ones, and then there's something we call snag. You now snag your building to see if there are 1 or 2 errors there you need to correct prior to when handing over to the what? To the subscriber or the owner of the apartment. And then you'll be fine. I will share a typical example of one of our sites at Ikeja GRA. Now, you can see this is a picture of one of our sites in Ibadan. All of you can see this is doctor over here properly kitted with his PPE. And then this is one of our sites at the extreme right hand. You can see my humble self there giving instruction to the project team. Now, I won't bother us with this because I've explained this earlier on: project management and window monitoring, time management, cost management, cost scope management, and communication. All these are important in construction. Time management, you need to manage your time in your project. If you exceed your construction, your delivery time, definitely it will tell you what at the overall cost of your project. And then you need to manage your cost of your project per time to ensure that you are not exceeding your budget without compromising quality and standard. Very key. And then you start and look for, okay, how do I source some material ahead? Should I source some material ahead so that inflation does not catch up with it? Should I source for my finishing material ahead so that inflation does not catch up with it? And then scope management, you are ensuring that you are within the scope of your work. And then communication is very, very key. Communication is very, very key. And then I said something about completion and handing over. I want us to run through a practical project. I rightly say one of our sites at Ikeja GRA. Case study: a residential developer by Dealclinchers, now Dealclinchers Home Limited, for what? Glorious View Court at Ikeja GRA. This is a typical ground floor. It's about 5 suspended floors. There's the ground floor, and then there's the typical first floor to third floor. There's something unique about this project. It's about 5 floors, and then people would think, it's 5 floors. We'll definitely do piling. But newsflash, on this particular project, we never did piling. We did the subsoil investigation report, and then the soil study said that it's a firm ground. We can adopt raft. And then the raft we have adopted is about 2.1, about 7 feet raft depth. And then the slab over that German floor over is like 250, 200, some either 200, some either 250 based on the steppings. I'll show us the typical. Now, there's something unique about this project, why I brought it up. The ground floor is more like a car park. The first, second, third floor is a typical floor, typical unit. But the fourth and the fifth floor is a different dynamics already. Okay, the first to the third floor is flat, and then the fourth to the fifth is terrace apartment. So you can see something unique about is that, fine, the walls from the ground, from the first to the third floors were aligning, but from the fourth floor to the fifth floor to the roof, all the walls were not aligning. And it was a major challenge for us at the planning stage. And I must thank the architect that worked on this project. He really did a lot of work, and the structural engineer that worked on the project too. He has to start shifting the columns, have to start using some beams to carry that column, and then everything transferred to the foundation. Now this is a typical fourth floor, and then the fifth floor. Now there's a 3D of the project, and I'll show you likely the stage we are, and then you can compare the 3D and then the actual, what we have on site. But I can tell you for free that what you have, the 3D, is the same thing of what we have practically on site. Now, okay, this is one of the view, the back, and then one of the right-hand side of the view. And then there's the front view, and then the other side of the view. And then this one is just like a night view. And then, okay, this is typical structural engineering layout. You may not really understand this. These are just some engineering jargons and terms that only people in the world construction field actually will really understand. And then layout. And then here we are. Now, if you can see, this is the setting out we did here, and the excavation ongoing. We had a tough time. There were serious challenges here. Like you can see towards the left-hand side, towards the end, there was an existing foundation there that was looking like a rock. And then we called in different people to come and break for us. And then so many hydraulic jackhammer was giving way. Someone even suggested that we should use a dynamite. I told the person, do you know the implication? It's going to affect every other destiny. So what we did, I said, challenging we had, what difficulty was what experienced during excavation of trench for rough foundation. And as this structure was encountered and the need to use explosive was implying as it could not be done manually. So what we did, we went to the design table. I call in the structure engineer. We redesigned the beam. Now, some area that was supposed to be 2.1, we redesigned it, changing the reinforcement sizes, reducing the depth, and then increasing the strength, so as to match up with what is supposed to be. And then there were some other additives we have to do, because we have to cast the foundation in batches. For this kind of foundation, now let me explain to you. For this kind of foundation, where now all these ones were the excavation points we have to do. All this, and definitely you all know that we cannot achieve the concreting in a single day. As a matter of fact, the concrete took us for almost 2 weeks. But what we did was, thankful for technology, there was a chemical we use, admins, whereby we apply it to the face of the old concrete to bond with our new concrete. And then this is where we are presently. And then, like I rightly said, I've mentioned the challenges that we have to move some walls here and there to align our walls. And then this was when the foundation was ongoing. Like you can see now, we started casting, and then this beam you are seeing here is about 2.1 meters, about 7 feet. This is where we've casted, and then with rammer, and then with compact, we'll do our waterproofing, downproofing, and this is where we are casting now. And then here we are, where it was a frame structure. Those are part of our column in position. And then this is when we are on the second, third floor. And this is when the block wall is in place. And this is when the plashing was ongoing. And then here we are, the finishing stages. And then currently, this is where we are. You can relate this with the 3D I showed earlier. You can see that it's almost the same thing what we have. I think at this point, I will need to have a pause to accommodate, hand over to the moderator for any question and answer.
Let me quickly appreciate Adeyemi Ilugbuhi for that thorough presentation. It's a very, very thorough presentation. I must commend you on behalf of the Bishop of Real Estate Academy. Thank you so much. We are saying we appreciate you, sir. I know that this is exactly, no matter how much you take us, we know that it will be, it can be compared to what happens when you say you want a pilot to impact the grace of flying upon you when you have not gone to the aviation school. It will be a waste of time. As much as you have thoroughly taught us, I just want to put a caveat that let not somebody think that you already know construction and you want to start constructing without going through the lessons. What engineering cannot summarize 21 years for you in 1 hour. It's not possible. So I have to say that. And let me also say that in construction, when a medical doctor wrongly injects somebody, he or she can only kill one person per time. But in construction, when you wrongly build, you can kill 100 people at one go if you get it wrong. So I had to place that caveat for you to know that what we're trying to do is not to teach people how to construct in one class, but it's actually to let you know that you can actually learn the ropes of construction. And if you want to ask, you cannot get all the answers to your question in one sitting tonight. You need to follow Engineer Ilugbuhi on all social media handles, and also be able to follow him back to back. Then, at the point of internship, exactly where I'm going now, we had close to about 700 and something people who applied for this cohort 1. And when they were screened, after much begging, I did a whole lot of begging to the team or the coordinators to have it up to 400 and something. But I'm surprised that in this last class, we have less than 60, because the time test started coming in. A lot of people started dropping, because I know for sure that we, at some point, of course, you need to separate the width from the what do you call it? From the shafts. Now, from the people we have now, I am convinced that these are the real people who are ready to acquire this knowledge. So when you go for internship, at that point, we'll be splitting and separating people who wants to go into construction from people who wants to learn real estate marketing, or you want to learn about sales. So then we'll be able to put you in the respective places. So if you want to learn constructing, start making up your mind right now. We just attach you to engineering, and it will give you the appropriate site where you can learn from the beginning. So I need to put that caveat. So I hand over to you, Mr. David. Thank you very much, engineering, once again. God bless you, sir.
He or she said, is there peculiarity when it comes to government approval regarding other states, or they are all the same, sir? Looking at that of Lagos State.
Okay, should I react to that?
Yes, sir, please, sir.
Okay. Every state has their own approval processes. I can tell you for free, the way you get your process approved in Lagos is definitely different from how you get it in Ogun State. How you get it as far as the east, as far as the north. But the bottom line is all of them channel towards one goal, but the approach differs. For example, now in Lagos State, I think Lagos State thus far is the only state I know thus far that getting approval in Lagos State can be a very rigorous process. Rigorous in the sense that, one, Lagos State is the waterlogged area. The whole of Lagos, both mainland and island, is below sea level. So as that, the government has to put checks and balance. I tell people that care to listen, if you're practicing engineering and then you've not practiced in Lagos, and then you stay far in the north, whereby the soil is very good, and then you thought you've practiced engineering, then you have experience, you've not gotten an exposure.